Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Heisenflay. Today, we will be doing the basics on Hals-Star Saber, Abridged. Now, to all of the new viewers who will be watching this, Hals-Star Saber is a fan project that I'm working on. It's a little bit of a combination of Armored Core, My Little Pony, Gundam, and a few other properties that I like. Azur Lane, Goddess of Victory, Nikkei. Just a bunch. Of course, that'll be apparent as we go on. But, of course, the other version of this, the unabridged and not safe for work version, is still on my channel. But this is just so I can post it to other sites and whatnot, like Reddit. We're going to jump right into it with a plot synopsis. So, Equestria is a nation that thrives off of friendship, love, and unity. It's a diverse country with a long history and many cultures, and it was one of the last nations not ruled over by a super state known as Superia. That was until Superia's leader, Leguizamir Ale, decided that everything belonged to him. And that included Equestria. So he, in air quotations, struck a deal with Equestria's leader, Princess Celestia, and Superia now had a guerrilla grip over Equestria. It would continue like this for a century until Leguizamir died. But of course, as things usually are, his son, Fra Volé, would take over as the head of a newly formed Superian Council. So he would continue the cycle of hatred and speciesism. Equestria was stuck under the oppressive thumb of humanity, and things seemed hopeless. Until, one day, a horrific tragedy struck in Superia. Superia's largest and most advanced airport, the Grand Superian Airport, would be attacked by a group known as the MLF, or Mechanicus Liberation Front. Of course, that is something that we will go into deeper detail on in another video. But all you need to know for now is that that would start a war on a species known as the Mechanicus, or Mechanicarnus. And that would loosen things up in Equestria. Superia's grip would tighten a bit, and this would allow the next few events to happen. A man from another country, hidden deep within a place called the Unknown East, known as Unwardia, arrived in Equestria. This man's name was Cabalus Wukobanyashi, the Prince of Unwardia. Cabalus befriended the elements of harmony and decided to help Equestria, and using Unwardia's hyper-advanced technology, he gifted the elements powerful exoskeleton suits and began training the Kilimar Crusaders to be ace mech pilots. So that was the plot. Now on to the section I've labeled Basic Lore. So first we're going to go over the countries. Superia. Superia is a superstate born in... What do I have written here? Okay, 1993. It was born in 1993 from a global tragedy known as the 7 Hours of Freedom. Superia is led by Fra Volé and his council. Superia is a very bigoted state. And pretty much any and all non-humans or other minorities either live in poverty, live under extreme scrutiny from their human neighbors, or are even hunted by law enforcement constantly, like the Mechanicus. Superia's laws are upheld by the National Heroes Association, a quote-unquote peacekeeping agency that was brought forth to replace Superia's normal police force, known as the City Police. because that was the the informal name for Superia back in the day, the city. The NHA makes use of quote-unquote powered humans, although, as you will come to know soon, powered humans are not actually powered humans. And other non-humans to, well, yeah, oppress non-humans and uphold the laws, which, of course, falls under oppressing non-humans, since most of those laws are crafted to harm non-humans. These are just photos of what Superia looks like in my mind. These are photos from Cyberpunk 2077, I believe. Just to give credit where credit's due. Next is Woundwardia. Woundwardia is a mysterious country from the unknown east. The unknown east, of course, is basically just pretty much all of the east, like anything past India, pretty much. It's swallowed up by this extremely thick fog that jams all sort of like communications, satellites, anything. No one knows what's going on in the unknown east. It's impossible to fly through. It's impossible to navigate. So it's just been abandoned. Yeah. So yeah. But this is how I'd imagine Wardia to be through all this fog. This is a picture from Armored Goal. It's a Chinese manga, I believe. So not a manhwa. No, manhwa's Korean. So not a manhwa. But yeah, it's but this is what I'd imagine Moonwardia to be: a massive ship nearly twice the size of Russia. Of course, we'll get to how that's possible once we get to the geography section. Moonwardia. All that's known about them is that they are an incredibly advanced species of Mechanicus that were chased away from the West in their infancy by Superia's second leader, Leguizamir. Most informational texts that shine a light on Woundwarts are either hidden from the public in the forbidden wing of the Camelot Library, or they've been destroyed. The few that do still exist and are in the public knowledge are very vague, and of course shine a very negative light on Woundwardia what little information constitutes as the culture that they, as research on the culture. Yeah. So next is Equestria. This is the sort of equestrian insignia before Twilight became a princess, and this is how it looked afterwards. Of course, as you can see, the watermarks, as you can see right there. Hino Ratio on DeviantArt made this. It's very good. It's extremely good. So give him a follow. Equestria is a thriving country that emerged in the early BC era. No one quite knows how the Equestrians came to be. No one knows whether or not they are Lodians or simply a hyper-evolved species of equine. What is known is that Equestria is a state that puts morals first, technological prowess second, and its military last. This is something that is a source of ridicule, especially amongst humans. Many humans, of course, believe that Equestrians put friendship above even their own education, above financial success, and of course, this is untrue. But unbeknownst to most, Equestrians and Woundwardians actually go pretty far back, in a way. But of course, this will be, of course, more information about this will be revealed in Spotlight Woundwardia, well, HSS Spotlight Woundwardia, and HSS Spotlight Sweetie Belle. So, yeah. Next, we move on to the species. Oh, wait, yeah. This is a map of Ponyville, which is where most of Hals-Star Saber takes place. Yeah, so afterwards, we move on to species. We move on to humans. These guys represent the humans. Well, as you can see, she's obviously not exactly a human. And this guy kind of isn't either. But humans, of course, self-explanatory. You know, we all know what a human is. And these guys are, of course, that Superior Council I was talking about, led by Frau Volée. As you can see here. If it looks kind of weird, it's because I used AI to enhance the image quality. I made this in a software called Pixel Art, and you know, it's when you download these images, they're not exactly the most high resolution. Then there's Anthony, otherwise known as Boss. All three of these guys are my brother's characters, by the way. And he hasn't come up with a last name for Anthony just yet, so it's just Anthony Boss. Anthony is from India, one of the few Eastern countries that weren't destroyed by the 7 Hours of Freedom. Then there's Inspector Archibald Quimby. He is the military director. Oh yeah, and if I haven't said it already, Anthony is he is one of the head directors of the NHA, or National Heroes Association. But Archibald Quimby's the military director. And then there's Hine Aranea, a character actually based off of Rina Therina, a character by a Twitter artist that I really like. I really respect their work and the characters that they make. So one of my characters is based pretty heavily off of Rina, as you can see. But yeah, this is Hine Aranea. Obviously, the name's also pretty similar, but she is a Viltrumite with pretty unique-looking eyes and white hair. But she's pretty far removed from Viltrumite culture because she was born on Earth, kind of like Mark. Yeah, this is the Superior Council. They represent humanity. And Anthony is actually a part of the next species, Lodians. Now, representing Lodians is a photo that, it's a illustration that was created by William Mai, or WM Discovery 93. They are on Twitter and DeviantArt, but I found them on DeviantArt. But of course, ever since I started using Twitter to look at art, you know, I've been using that. So they go under both these names. Yeah, as you can see, their art's very good. And this Snake Man with a Halo shirt is going to be is representing the Lodians. As you can see, Lodians typically they do not look very human. You know, of course, a majority of Lodians are made up by a species known as anthropomorphs. They are humanoid animals with, of course, you know, animal heads, animal tails, various abilities that animals have. But there are other kinds of Lodians that sort of good on the whimsical side, such as a character known as Jared Cookie, who has some level of plot relevance. He's just a cookie with arms and legs, and a monocle and a top hat. This whole thing is that he's a very big gentleman. He's quite the chap, I would say. I'm not British. Yeah, so Lodians are an incredibly diverse race whose name was initially meant to be, you know, slapped onto any sentient species that wasn't a human. So, yeah. Lodians, of course, there's no true definition besides that, because so many different things can be, so many different kinds of people can be a Lodian. Yeah, this is what most people would think of in the world of Hals-Star Saber when you think of a Lodian, an animal man or an animal woman. Next are Mechanicus or Mechanicarnus, a species that is partially mammalian, partially avian, and partially insectoid. They are born with a mechanized casing or mechanical shell that is weaponized. And there are many different species of Mechanicus or Mechanicarnus. Of course, Mechanicus is a Warhammer thing, so in order to avoid copyright, they will most likely be called Mechanicarnus in any official media if we ever get to the point where Games Workshop would want to sue. So I've heard that they can be a little trigger happy with the C&D. So for now we can still go by Mechanicus, but once it starts to get big, it's Mechanicarnus from there on out. So this is an illustration done by an artist named Pipe Bomb on Twitter. They're very good. I like the way they depict mobile suits and Gundams. But in Hals-Star Saber, mobile suits are known as mobile soldiers. Most Mechanicus are relatively human-sized, of course, a fair bit taller. As you can see here, more mobile soldiers, more Gundams. Of course, we won't be able to call them Gundams. Maybe we might. Here's some great illustrations by Pipe Bomb once again. There are Pats or Patrollers. Those are the non-offensive names that they like to be called in universe. Or the Mobile Police. Then there are ACs. Oh yeah, this is an illustration done by an artist known as Divine Purgnation. They're an absolute god with the pile bunker in Armored Core Last Raven. You probably know them if you've been around the AC scene for long enough, or just interested in really good gameplay. So yeah, ACs or Armored Cores, and of course Gundams. Once again, they're of course their performance is so incredibly high when compared to the average mobile soldier that they are almost classed as a different species. But usually they're classed as a subspecies of mobile soldier. Of course, by themselves usually, since, they obviously wouldn't want to separate themselves from their fellow MS. But then, of course, there are equestrians, species of people with equine-like features. I say equine-like because obviously, they aren't the most, equine looking, I guess. It's a very short and soft snout. But of course, the ears and horn are, of course, well, I guess, yeah, the ears are, and hooves are very equine. Equestrians are colorful. Of course, they can be all sorts of different colors. I guess you could also consider Spike here an equestrian. He's a dragon, although dragons are from the Dragonlands. It's still a place within Equestria and the Hals-Star Saber universe. So within the HSS universe, he would be a dragon. Well, he would be an equestrian. His race would be dragon, but his nationality would be equestrian. Their hair, eyes, bodies, they can be almost any color. Equestrians are very friendly and accepting. They're very patient. Their main defining trait, of course, every species in HSS has one. Humans, of course, intelligence and pride. Lodians, their diversity, and, just how many different kinds there can be. Mechanicus, of course, their sheer, just offensive power, and how uniquely just unstoppable they are compared to every other species. Equestrians, they have magic. Magic all throughout their bodies by which is allowed by a material that a material called Harmon crystals. Their bones are aligned with the stuff. Their horns are completely made out of the stuff. Harmon crystals, they're magical in nature. And unicorns, what Twilight was, she didn't always have the wings. Unicorns, they are the most obvious example of magic using equestrians. They use this horn to channel their magic and, of course, levitate things, make things appear and disappear, all the different magical shenanigans you can think of. Anyone who's familiar with My Little Pony knows this, but this is just for those who are not, big on the My Little Pony scene, who don't. But of course, that's not to say that Earth ponies and unicorns don't have magic. Unicorns in my mind have the most versatile magic, the most obvious magic. You can tell it makes visible light and sound, or at least I think it does. In the show, I think it was confirmed that the light is just for the viewers; it's not actually visible. But in HSS, obviously, it is, because I like lights and pretty colors. Because autism. Is that okay to say? Anyways, so, next, Pegasi, of course. Pegasi, of course, don't have a horn, but they do have these wings. But their wings are actually how they channel their magic. They use these wings to lift up... they use the magic in these wings to lift off, fly at very fast speeds, despite the fact that their wings aren't exactly flapping all that fast, because I do believe that, in order to generate any speed, you would have to flap, right? It generates lift and speed. And, of course, at the size that equestrians are canonically, they obviously can't exactly fly. They're not exactly very aerodynamic. So, magic. But the other thing that Pegasi have that also makes them honestly a bit almost as OP as unicorns. Well, they're all sort of equally all pony races are equally as OP in their own way, but when you think about it for a while, the Pegasi and their weather magic are they're a lot more overt. It's a lot more overtly devastating to be able to control something that basically no one else can control. There's no way to control the weather. At least not that I know of. I mean, there aren't any, laws on controlling the weather, so, that's gotta say something, right? No one's done it before. So, Pegasi, they have weather magic. Of course, at first, it just looks like they're flying so fast that they're generating tornadoes, pushing storm clouds, walking on clouds, but that's due to their magic. Their magic is allowing them to do that. You can't just touch clouds. Pegasi, of course, they have that. Then, of course, there are the Earth ponies. Their magic is almost completely invisible. It's so, natural looking most of the time that, it's either mistaken for just explosive super strength or just raw agricultural talent. Earth ponies have the magical ability to almost command most plant life, most floral life. And they also, magic also grants them a certain amount of super strength. Because, we've seen clips of just, Applejack kicking trees, Pinky sort of just lifting things she shouldn't be able to. Of course, Pinky being Pinky, but also just, Maud punching through solid stone. I'm pretty sure Limestone does something similar. But my point is, we've seen Earth ponies in the show accomplish feats of strength that it usually takes magic or some other means for other equestrian races. So, obviously, that's either some form of super strength or it's magic, which I have it be magic in this. It's magic that just sort of looks like rapid muscle growth. I just have it physically manifest through just the muscles almost growing 3 times their original size, temporarily, of course. Because even with magic, I'm pretty sure your muscles would still tear off your bones if they just went 3 times their original strength out of nowhere, from nothing. which is what happens a lot of the time, I think. But now we're on to the geography section. Thanks to vectorworldmap.com for this. Copyright 2009. Oh, this might not be very accurate then. As mentioned before, an event known as the 7 Hours of Freedom ravaged the entire world of the Hals-Star Saber. Basically, the 7 Hours of Freedom was a result of the abuse and oppression of Mechanicus, or Mechanicarnus. I guess I did say we can call them Mechanicus for now. Mechanicus, they were used as slaves. Before the mobile soldiers, the PATs, the ACs, there were just the mortar heads. They're from a series in real life. They're from a series known as the Seven Star Stories, or Gothic Maid. But the mortar heads, they were the only Mechanicus for a while. Of course, these other Mechanicus subspecies were they were bred in other countries, but the original mortarheads, they touched down somewhere around here, and they were just sort of, and after a while they were just sort of used for slave labor everywhere, except for Equestria. Now Equestria it's shaped a lot like Brazil. It's sort of where Brazil and Mexico are, but it takes up basically this entire space. Basically. As for Superia, as I said before, it's a combination of the Americas, Canada, of course, Alaska. Greenland, however, is completely left untouched by the Superians, the Equestrians, the Wardians, basically everyone, because, for another plot-relevant reason that I just can't get into for now. Iceland's untouched. The United Kingdom is relatively untouched, although Ireland got hit pretty bad. The reason that the United Kingdom was almost untouched is because most of the overly violent and destructive actions happened around, like, Asia, China, Mongolia, Kazakhstan, Africa, Australia, Indonesia, and that's basically where a lot of Mechanicus slave labor was happening. Of course, this is America. Of course, they're going to have, they're trying to have slave labor of any kind, really. So, down south there was a lot of Mechanicus slave labor going on in the Bahamas and Cuba too. The Mechanicus, they just sort of broke out. I guess I did say that Equestria would take up this entire area. Basically, all of this would just probably be moved up here. But that doesn't matter, since all of this would be... But the Bahamas, Cuba, they're all way too small to have, like, a bunch of Mechanicus just, messing around. So, they are almost completely destroyed. So, yeah, the only countries that were left untouched were countries that didn't rely on Mechanicus slave labor, either because they had too good morals, or they knew that it was going to end badly. And those countries were India and Russia. India's current leader at the time, who will go unnamed, I guess, since I don't know any of India's leaders, and I'm not just going to make one up on the spot. They were like, yeah, this is not going to end well, and Russia was a state that was mostly led by non-humans. So unlike our current world, Russia's a very progressive country that, is led by the minority class. So they are only really minority in number in Russia. So, mostly Lodians, some Mechanicus, and just a few Equestrians. Equestrians don't really stray outside of Equestria. Pretty much all of Asia, once again, anything past India, shrouded in just the jamming smoke, the ECM fog. Australia, not completely destroyed, but is actually sinking due to the damage. New Zealand, almost completely, just flattened. It's reduced to a husk of its former self. Um, Most of Africa, like pretty much like this entire section, has been like just reduced in size. Yeah, Africa is reduced in size pretty dramatically because of these 7 hours of freedom. Um, yeah, most of the islands either sank or started to dip into the depths of the ocean a little bit. So, yeah, it was pretty bad. Um, so yeah, now on to factions, and this will be like the last section since I'm already sort of nearing the limit of the amount of time I wanted to use. So first we have the NHA, of course. We've already gone over the NHA and the Council. Then the SEC unit, Archibald Quimby, the military director, has direct command over the SEC unit. It is an international anti-power counter-terrorist special tactics strike force, codenamed SEC unit. Always there, always ready. I originally made the logo a crow, but my brother, the creator of the SEC unit, and the creator of Quimby and a lot of the characters on the SEC unit, he informed me that their logo would more likely be like a bull or a rhino or an elephant, so that will be changed in the coming weeks when HSS Spotlight Sec Unit comes out. The Hals-Star Saber. The Hals-Star Saber is a specialized sort of unit created by Unwardia's Prince, Kabbalas Kobayashi. It's a thing called a Comfort Squad, which we will go over in the next video, which is HSS Spotlight Unwardia. Yeah, so it's of course it's a Unwardian force. Yeah, and that's sort of like all I can go to without spoiling the next video. Then the Elements of Harmony. They are Equestria's peacekeepers, essentially. They're a friend group, but they also help keep Equestria safe. They rise to the challenge whenever it comes their way. They face adversity at pretty much every week. So yeah, that's the Elements of Harmony. That's another cool logo that I got for them. I credited the original creator of their logo, of this logo here. And I forget who it is, but I will, I will, edit, well not edit, yeah, I will add a post, I will put in the description and a comment, a pinned comment, yeah, the original creator of this emblem right here. The Crusaders, or the CMC, they were originally a group of young girls who wanted to find their cutie mark, but eventually the group grew a bit, and, of course, after growing in numbers, of course, they grew in age, found their cutie mark, and decided that their goals were to help other young kids find their cutie marks. But of course, as well as that, they also wanted to defend Equestria from threats and whatnot, because, of course, with a crazy specious nation having control over Equestria, a lot of specious things happen. But we'll go more into that in, a bunch of Spotlight episodes. Then there's From Software, a Mechanicarnus group or Mechanicus group. It is led by an AC named On Fang. Basically, her husband Leos Klein, otherwise known as Ethermaster, they and the rest of their family and friends, they develop games, and pretty much just sort of live their lives doing that. And they are supposed, when it comes to like Mechanicus groups, they're sort of the peaceful Mechanicus group. You know, they're the guys who just keep their heads down, stay out of trouble, and try their best to take abuse when it comes their way. You know, they obviously don't, you know, lead the best lives, you know, the lives that they want to lead, but they do what they can. Then there's the Mechanicus Liberation Front. They are the polar opposite. They just kill people. They just straight up kill people. Their whole thing is that if humans are scared of them, they will never mess with them again. They are led by a man named Freud de Dahlia Hunter. He is a KM-01 Byakuchi. Anfeng, of course, you know, we all know she's an AC. I don't know why I don't know why I felt the need to add that. But yeah, so Freud de Dahlia Hunter leads the MLF, Mechanicus Liberation Front. I know that this text is really stupid and obnoxious and it's hard to read. I was stupid when I made that logo. Then there's the Coalition of Gundams. They're essentially the in-between. They don't kill anyone, but they don't keep their heads down either. They, you know, they blow things up and they destroy important things, but they don't kill anyone. That's basically their thing. And I think that is everything. That's everything for now. There's nothing else to really go over. But so I guess, that is the basics on Hals-Star Saber, abridged and safe for work. I hope you all enjoyed. This one was under 40 minutes, so it's much better. It's much better than the 50 minutes that we had last time. I hope you all enjoy. Please be nice to each other, and see you next time.